Some wounds don't scream. They stay quiet and slowly hollow you out from the inside. My name is Leila. And I'm adopted. I didn't learn what that word really meant from paperwork or whispered conversations. I learned it at my own dining table. I was 8 years old, swinging my legs under the chair, spinning a pencil between my fingers, when I asked my mother why my eyes didn't look like hers. The room went still. My father lowered the volume on the television. My mother smiled too quickly and said, "Because you're special." I nodded, satisfied. I didn't understand then that special often meant separate. My parents, Harold and Miriam, loved me deeply. Their love was steady and warm, the kind that made you feel safe without asking questions. My mother braided my hair every morning before school. My father never missed a recital, even when I was terrible. When he clapped, it felt like the whole room belonged to me. They never made me feel different. Their biological children did. Rebecca was the oldest. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. The kind of girl who learned early how to look kind while being cruel. Ethan was sharp-tongued and lazy with his words, always laughing just a little too loud at my expense. Natalie was the quiet one. Soft voice. Gentle eyes. The most dangerous kind. Growing up, their cruelty didn't come as open insults. It came as small cuts. Rebecca would angle herself during family photos so I barely fit into the frame. Ethan would grin and say, "Relax, Isla. It's not like anyone can tell." Natalie would smile sweetly and say, "You're lucky they chose you." Lucky. As if I'd been pulled from a bargain bin and placed somewhere I should constantly be grateful for. I learned how to make myself smaller. I learned when to stop talking. When to excuse myself. How not to ask for too much space. When things hurt, my mother would pull me aside, cup my face in her hands, and whisper, "You are our daughter in every way that matters." My father would ruffle my hair and wink like it was a secret just between us. And for a while, that was enough. We grew up. Rebecca built a life polished with status and appearances. Ethan chased money and authority. Natalie built a picture-perfect family and hid behind it. And I stayed somewhere in between. Never fully inside. Never fully outside. Then came the year that broke me open. My mother got sick first. Then my father. Slowly at first. Then all at once. Hospital rooms replaced living rooms. The smell of antiseptic replaced home. That's when everyone disappeared. Rebecca said she couldn't emotionally handle seeing them like that. Ethan said his job couldn't risk the exposure. Natalie said her children needed her. So it was me. Every day. Sleeping in stiff hospital chairs. Signing forms I barely understood. Combing my mother's hair when her hands could no longer lift. Holding my father's hand and telling him everything would be okay, knowing it wouldn't be. They died within days of each other. I was there when they took their last breaths. I thought loss might soften people. I thought grief might remind my siblings of what mattered. Instead, it gave them permission. Permission to pretend. Permission to perform. Permission to take. When the funerals ended and the casseroles stopped coming, Rebecca announced a family dinner to honor Mom and Dad. She assigned tasks. "Leila, you'll cook. You always made Mom's recipes best." I should have recognized the trap. But grief makes you hope for things you shouldn't. I spent 3 days cooking. I wore the dress my mother always said made me glow. I told myself maybe this was the moment we came back together. I didn't know I was walking straight into the beginning of the end. I walked into that house believing I was family. I didn't realize I was walking onto a stage where I was meant to be humiliated. Rebecca's house was beautiful in the way museums are beautiful, cold, polished, untouched by warmth. Everything had a place, and none of it felt lived in. When I stepped inside, carrying containers of food that still held my mother's recipes, the air felt tight. Like a room where people had been talking about you seconds before you arrived. "Leila, you're early," Rebecca said, smoothing her blouse as she approached me. Her smile was perfect. Practiced. "I wanted to help," I said. "Set things up." "You've already done enough," she replied, her eyes dropping to the food in my hands. "Just put everything in the kitchen. We'll handle the rest." We. Not us. I walked past the dining room and caught fragments of hushed conversation. Ethan's voice. Natalie's nervous laugh. Then silence, sharp and sudden, when they noticed me. Something in my chest tightened. In the kitchen, I unpacked the dishes I had spent days preparing. Apple cinnamon roast. Herb potatoes. My mother's pie, the one she used to make on Sundays when the house smelled like comfort and safety. My hands shook as I arranged everything neatly, like if I did it perfectly enough, I might earn my place back. A memory hit me without warning. I was 11, standing on the porch with a plate of cookies I had baked myself. Rebecca, Ethan, and Natalie were sitting together, laughing. I offered them a cookie. "Sure," Rebecca said. But as I walked away, I heard her whisper, "She tries too hard." They laughed then. Just like they would later. When I stepped back into the living room, the atmosphere had shifted again. Rebecca and Natalie stood too close together, whispering by the window. Ethan avoided my eyes entirely. "I brought Mom's pie," I said softly. "The one she taught me." "Perfect," Rebecca replied quickly. "You can serve it later." Serve. Not share. Adrian wasn't there. My children weren't there. There was no one to ground me. Just me, surrounded by people who had spent a lifetime reminding me I didn't quite belong. Dinner began politely. Quietly. The kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle. Rebecca took the seat at the head of the table, my mother's seat. Ethan poured wine like he was hosting a corporate dinner. Natalie kept adjusting her bracelet, her eyes darting around like she was waiting for a cue. My chair was at the far end. No one offered to move. As I brought the food out, Rebecca clapped lightly. "Oh good, Leila. You can start serving." No one stood to help. No one made space. I moved around the table like hired help, placing plates in front of them while they talked over me. Work stories. Complaints. Fake nostalgia. Halfway through the meal, Ethan cleared his throat. "So," he said, leaning back, "since we're all here, we should probably talk about the house." My hand froze. Rebecca nodded. "And Mom's jewelry. There are some valuable pieces." Natalie added, "and the investments. It's best if those stay in the bloodline." The bloodline. The word sat on the table between us, ugly and undeniable. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice coated in sweetness. "We're just being practical, Leila. I'm sure you understand." "What exactly are you saying?" I asked. Natalie sighed, like she was preparing to console a child. "We all know Mom and Dad loved you, but legally, inheritance usually goes to biological children. It's just how families work." Families. Rebecca smiled, that familiar childhood smirk slipping through. "Don't be dramatic. You can keep sentimental things. A photo or two. That was when something inside me went very, very still. I pushed my chair back gently and stood. They thought I was leaving. They thought I was about to break. Instead, I walked toward my purse. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to belong. They thought I was walking away in shame. They didn't know I was walking toward the truth. When I turned toward my purse, I could feel their eyes on my back. Rebecca's gaze burned, sharp and curious. Ethan looked confused, his forehead creasing like something wasn't going according to plan. Natalie's lips parted slightly, already preparing whatever soft lie she thought might fix this. They expected tears. They expected silence. They expected me to disappear the way I always had. I didn't. My fingers closed around the envelope the moment I touched it. Thick. Heavy. Real. I had carried it with me for weeks, hidden under receipts and folded paper, waiting. I hadn't known exactly what I was waiting for, only that my parents had told me I'd know when the time came. As I walked back toward the table, the room seemed to shrink. The clinking of silverware stopped. Even the music in the background felt too loud, too wrong. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. I didn't answer. I stepped to the center of the table, right between my mother's old china and Rebecca's carefully placed candles, and laid the envelope down. Not slammed. Not thrown. Placed. The soft thud echoed louder than any shout. Rebecca frowned. "Leila, what is that?" I looked at each of them. Slowly. Deliberately. "Mom and Dad left me this," I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. "Call your lawyers. We'll finish this tomorrow." For a moment, no one spoke. Then panic crept in. I saw it first in Ethan. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and hollow-eyed. Natalie's fingers tightened around her wine glass like she might drop it. Rebecca's smile froze, and then cracked. "What did you do?" she whispered. I leaned forward slightly. "What you made me do." No one laughed this time. I picked up my purse, turned, and walked out of the house. The door closed behind me with a quiet finality that felt like the end of a long sentence I had been trapped inside my entire life. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. The shock. The fear. The sudden understanding that they had miscalculated me. That they had assumed I was weak because I was kind. Adrian drove me to the law office the next morning. His hand rested on mine the entire way. "You don't owe them anything," he said softly. "I know," I replied. "But I wish they had chosen differently." The building was tall and quiet, sunlight spilling through wide windows like it didn't know the storm waiting inside. They were already there. Rebecca sat stiffly, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Ethan leaned back in his chair, jaw clenched. Natalie stared at the table like it might open and swallow her whole. They didn't look at me. Mr. Arthur Sullivan entered moments later, my parents' lawyer for over 20 years. Calm. Precise. The kind of man who had seen families fall apart and learned not to flinch. "We are here to review the last will and testament of Harold and Miriam Morgan," he began. Rebecca straightened. "There must be some mistake," she said quickly. "Our parents would never." "There is no mistake," Sullivan replied calmly. He opened the file. The entirety of the Morgan estate, home, savings, investments, and personal belongings has been left to their daughter, Leila Morgan. The room went dead silent. I felt it then. The shift. The moment everything they thought they knew about me collapsed. Ethan exploded first. That's impossible. We're their biological children. Sullivan didn't blink. Both Harold and Miriam were evaluated and found fully competent at the time these revisions were signed. Rebecca's voice cracked. Why would they do this to us? Sullivan looked at them, then at me. They told me, he said gently, that Leila was the one who never knew. They thought blood would protect them. They forgot love leaves records. The silence after Mr. Sullivan's words felt thick enough to choke on. Leila was the one who never left. Those words echoed in the room, pressing against the walls, settling into places my siblings had worked hard to keep buried. Ethan's jaw tightened, the muscle ticking like it might snap. Natalie's shoulders sagged, as if the fight had drained out of her all at once. Rebecca stared straight ahead, refusing to look at me. That's not fair, Ethan snapped finally. She was there because she had nothing else to do. 6 months. I felt the heat rise in my chest, slow and steady. 6 months of hospitals, paperwork, and sleeping in chairs, I said quietly. Where were you? No one answered. Mr. Sullivan turned a page. Your parents also included a clause regarding challenges to the will. Rebecca's head snapped up. What clause? If any beneficiary attempts to contest the will, he said evenly, they will forfeit all claims to family heirlooms, personal belongings, photographs, and items of sentimental value. Those items will be donated. The panic was instant. Rebecca's breath hitched. Natalie pressed her hands over her mouth. Ethan leaned forward, his earlier anger dissolving into calculation. You can't be serious, Natalie said, her voice trembling. Mom's ring. Dad's medals. It is very serious, Mr. Sullivan replied. Natalie turned to me, eyes glassy. Leila, you wouldn't let that happen, right? We grew up together. I studied her face. The familiar softness. The practiced vulnerability. Did we? I asked quietly. Because my memories look very different from yours. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. This is our legacy. I didn't raise my voice. You weren't there. Rebecca finally spoke, her voice low and unsteady. So that's it. We lose everything because you played nurse? Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but completely. I didn't play anything, I said. I loved them. When they were scared. When they were weak. When they were dying. Mr. Sullivan closed the folder gently. One more thing, he said. Your parents left a private message for Leila. He handed me a small envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single line, written in my mother's careful handwriting. You were always ours. Now let us take care of you the way you took care of us. My throat closed. The room blurred. For the first time since they passed, I let myself feel it, not the loss, but the love. Solid. Certain. Unquestionable. When I looked up, my siblings were watching me with something new in their eyes. Fear. Rebecca swallowed hard. Is there anything you want from us? I thought about the years of exclusion. The laughter. The way they had enjoyed pushing me out. I want peace, I said finally. And I won't negotiate our parents' wishes. Ethan stood abruptly. We'll see what leverage we have. There is none, Mr. Sullivan said calmly. The beneficiary was not present when the will was revised. There is no undue influence. That was the moment it ended. Rebecca's shoulders slumped. Natalie stared at the floor. Ethan's anger had nowhere left to go. I stood. I'm done here. Rebecca's voice broke. Leila, wait. I paused at the door but didn't turn around. You told me to go to the kitchen, I said softly. But I'm done eating scraps. I walked out. I didn't win anything that day. I was finally free. Adrian was waiting outside when I walked out of the law office. The moment I opened the car door, something inside me collapsed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet breaking, like a knot finally loosening after years of being pulled too tight. He didn't ask questions. He didn't rush me. He just reached for my hand and held it like it was enough. That night, after Ava and Mason were asleep, I told him everything. Every word of the will. Every look on my siblings' faces. Every last attempt they made to take something back once they realized they'd lost. They didn't just lose the inheritance, Adrian said when I finished. They lost you a long time ago. I knew he was right. The days that followed were ugly. Ethan called with threats disguised as legal curiosity. Natalie showed up at my door twice, crying, saying she missed me, saying she didn't mean it like that. Rebecca sent flowers. Long messages. Carefully written apologies that never quite admitted what she had done. I forgave them. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. For the first time in my life, I didn't explain myself. I didn't soften my boundaries. I didn't apologize for choosing peace. I kept the house. I kept my parents' things. I kept their love exactly where it belonged, with me. Months later, in a grocery store aisle, I ran into Dana, the social worker who had helped my parents during their final months. We talked for a while, and before we parted, she mentioned 2 little girls. Sisters. 4 and 3. No relatives willing to take them together. Something opened in my chest. 8 months later, Leia and Hazel came home. The first night was chaos. Tears. Fear. Unfamiliar beds. Ava read stories like she had been practicing her whole life for that moment. Mason offered his favorite stuffed bear without hesitation. I watched it all from the doorway, my heart so full it hurt. That was when I understood something my parents had always known. Family is not blood. Family is who stays. A year after that dinner, I stood in the doorway of our new home, watching all 4 kids chase each other across the backyard. Ava's laughter rang sharp and bright. Mason ran with his arms out like a superhero. Leia and Hazel clutched dandelions like treasures. Adrian slipped his arm around my waist. This, he whispered, is the real family. And he was right. Blood didn't give me this life. Love did. Choice did. Courage did. I used to believe that being adopted meant I had to earn my place in the world. That I had to be quieter. Kinder. Easier to love. Now I know better. I was never the outsider. I was the one who stayed when it mattered. The one who loved without conditions. The one they underestimated. And if you've ever been pushed aside by the people who should have protected you, if you've ever been told, quietly or cruelly, that you don't belong, hear this. You don't have to beg for a seat at a table that was never meant to hold you. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is build your own.